This is Modern Mindset, the show that picks the brains of the world's leading minds to help you unlock yours. I'm your host, Adam Cox, and joining me today, we have author, we have entrepreneur, and we have the queen of shine, Jill Wright. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam, so much for having me. It's really an honor to be with you.
No, it's fantastic to have you on the show. So we're going to get to learn a bit about the couple of books that you've been involved in, but give us a bit of a background because you have been an entrepreneur for many years. Tell us about the businesses that you've been involved in and how they came about.
Well, I was the youngest person ever to get a government contract to do an airport concession. My first airport was in Washington, D.C. I was awarded the shoe shine concessions contract there when I was 20 years old. So I lied and said I was 26 because I thought that sounded more mature, and started to engage with the people. And one of the things that I learned was that, well, I started and I thought, what can I offer? How can I be extraordinary? Because I think that's really important part of being a successful entrepreneur is how can you be extraordinary? And so I thought, well, what could I do with all of these high level CEOs and Supreme Court justices and all of these people? And what I learned is that the most powerful thing that I could do was just be myself and connect with them as a human being and create space for them to just put that title aside in the chair next to them and just engage as a human being. And so through I've 30 years, got several reports now, and I've been able to duplicate that. My company name is Executive Shine, and our tagline is "It's all about the love." And we've been written up and recognized by Forbes magazine, and also most recently by Harvard Business Review. And I was so excited about that. And Bill Taylor, the founder of Fast Company, is the one who wrote about us, excuse me, and he's one of our clients. And he really articulated the power of human connection in business
Mm.
in his story. So what I'm doing now is really working with other companies. And as we said a little bit earlier in our conversation, is helping them to really learn to connect, because in this time of extraordinary disconnection, it's a bigger need than ever to be able to connect with. I think the quiet time during COVID has allowed us to connect with who we really are, what our purpose is, what our message is, and then how to take that into a corporate structure, an entrepreneurial structure, and how do we bring that into an organization and acknowledge all of the individual pieces that are so important but yet very different, within that organization, and how do we connect that and
Mm.
bring that together and then put out a message, a product, a service that is really the sum of all the parts and effectively honors everybody within that organization. So that's what I'm working on now.
Mm. I think it's a powerful mission because I think what's happened over the last couple of centuries is that originally humans are designed to be communities. You know, they congregate together in communities. They work collaboratively, and what we've seen is that over the last couple of centuries, we've taken people from villages, from towns, put them into kind of cities, and within those cities, there is an increasing amount of isolation. You know, some of the loneliest people live in the busiest cities surrounded by, hundreds or, thousands of people. And I think we see that in business, we see that in modern society, that we're leading towards more and more isolated lives. What do you think is happening to turn that tide back towards connection, collaboration? Do you think technology is helping things like social media, or is that just encouraging people to be more and more individualistic?
I think technology is a vehicle, and so it depends on how you use it. Me personally, I'm not. I'm only interested in authentic connection. So if you want to engage with me on social media and we have build an authentic relationship, I'm very open to that. But I don't use social media for just surface connection. So I do think that having this digital age has allowed us to really expand our connection capacity, because look, I have the opportunity to meet you where I might not have ever had that opportunity. So there are a lot of really good pieces to this. And so I just think you need to be conscious and how you're using it and how you are connecting. I think it's a great opportunity to touch people that you would never have been able to touch before. So
Mm.
I do think it
Yeah.
increases it.
I would agree with that. I think, certain things can be used for good or to be used, in a different way. The technology that enables us to communicate right now can also be used to kind of separate people, that people just live in their own bubbles, their own echo chambers, and don't connect with other people. Within a workplace, um, people used to work in communities. They used to work together. The butcher, the baker used to be central parts of the community, interacting with other people. And then the nature of commerce meant that we had all these different factories turning roles that used to be very powerful roles into parts of a chain, which meant there was very little connection with other people or the customers that they served. Do you think society is reverting back to some of the more old fashioned ways to enable people to connect with real people? Or are we going to see more of this commodification of people just having, being a cog in a wheel, not really interacting with other people?
I think the pandemic has caused an incredible rise of entrepreneurship, and just I think that was coming anyway, but I personally I'm unemployable. So I'm really happy to see that. But I think the honoring of the person's individual gifts, as I mentioned before, I just listened to an awesome podcast where Jim Collins and Brene Brown were talking, and he was talking about the hedgehog, and not only what people like as their individual skill set, but what they were born to do. And so I think to be completely fulfilled in life, you have to do something that is you, that is an expression of you, and that you are really born to do. And that used to happen more in tribal culture and all of those things. And I think we kind of are cyclical, and I think we're kind of coming back to that and realizing the value of community and the value of staying in your own area of genius, but yet connecting with other people's areas of genius and then building something together, whether that's a company or whether that's a community. So I'm really happy personally to see the rise of that, because I'm all about honor and really the full expression of human potential. So that excites me.
It does feel like there is a bit of a tide change. And I think COVID has amplified the speed at which we were going to anyway. It's going to erode lots of unsustainable businesses, unsustainable models. And for those, in many ways, it's a bit like a forest fire. You need to have this kind of destructive part for the new shoots, the new opportunities to kind of come on through. So potentially, I know it's devastating for a lot of traditional businesses and models, and it's very unsettling for people, but equally, there are always opportunities in chaos and change. Um, you are involved in a book called Longevity, and we were talking about studies of people that have really long lives. And and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I have heard this statistic many, many times that men in particular will work an entire life. And then on average, there's a very high death rate within literally a few years of them retiring. Is that just kind of like nonsense that people get, shared around, or is there some truth to this kind of lack of significance or role to play actually shortens lifespan for certain people?
Absolutely. And I'll show you, this is a copy of the book, Codes of Longevity. My aspect of the book is about the power of human connection and exactly what you said. And I did read a bunch of studies in doing the research for this chapter. And I recognize that when people that in addition to long life, that connected quality of life is what really is the biggest extending factor. And so I think that now, you never value anything unless you don't have it.
Mm.
You never want to be well until you're really sick. You take your health for granted until you get sick. And then you're like, oh, I really need to take care of my health. This is really important. But if you're just kind of numb to it because you expect it, if nothing happens. And so I think that that's what's happened with the pandemic, and with a lot of things that are going on in the world, is made people recognize that connection is really important, and that not only does it lead to longevity in life, but it also gives you the essence and the life that is life, the quality of life.
Mm.
And I think it is one of the things that I've been studying, is that connection, I believe, is your natural state. And just like health, and that disconnection is not the natural state. So I think now, with all of this and this realization of what's going on in the world, and the separation has really made people say, wow, I do really want that connection. I
Mhm.
want that health. I want to get back to being with people that matter and doing work that matters in the world. And I want my life to make an impact and make a real difference.
And you see, where people are deliberately isolated. This might be within prisons or within, unfortunate circumstances. It really takes a toll on mental health. So it's not even that it's a luxury to have this connection with other people. It really is an essential ingredient to life. And I remember the film Castaway with Tom Hanks, and that kind of extreme isolation, and then when he finally connects with people, you get this realization of the contrast of, well, he needed to be away from people to realize how important people are. And I think, to some extent, this is a global experiment, because we're interacting less with people than ever before. We're starting to really appreciate how important those connections, that interaction is. I think, we're speaking on Zoom at the moment. Lots of people have got used to that, but I think there's going to be a real resurgent for people to meet face to face and connect face to face, as soon as they can, because they would have missed it. It's that kind of fear of loss, of missing out for that real kind of human connection. What's your prediction in terms of, because obviously you're unique in the sense that you have a particular perspective on human connection, but also business. What's your prediction in terms of how businesses are going to adapt and respond to what the pandemic has created over the next few years?
Well, I think that we have in business been lulled into a only for profit model. And so what I think is happening now with that is that people are coming back together and saying, you know what, if it doesn't have meaning, and I don't feel like I'm fully expressed in this job, and I'm not able to make a difference and express who I am and have that be honored and appreciated, I'm not interested.
Mhm.
So I think that the quality of business is going to change, or at least that's my hope. I'm really excited about that, because I've always felt that, you spend so much of your time engaged in business. And whether you're an entrepreneur, probably more if you're an entrepreneur, but also if you're working within the corporate vehicle, and it's important to have that time be life-giving. And I have very little turnover in my business, if basically none. And people say to me all the time, how do you do that? And I say, well, it's basically about honor. I love them. I honor them as unique individuals who are very different than me. And so I feel like my job as a leader is to cultivate them as unique human beings, and so that they can bring the best of who they are to what they do. And that concept alone, I think, is life-giving. And so I am excited that people are now more aware of this, and that it's starting to be a trend. It's starting to come online, that people are like, I'm not going to sacrifice my life for an empty cubicle anymore. I
Mm.
need to do something with meaning. I need to be honored and valued and appreciated. And I need to express what my gift is in the world to be a fulfilled human being, I think.
Mm. And that certainly goes against the kind of the business narrative, the kind of the gurus of the 1980s that were very much around productivity, around optimization, cutting out wasted time and all this kind of stuff. Because at its essence, it was all about the value of an individual is the amount of profit or productivity they can contribute, rather than, a sense of connection or value. But you're right, certain companies really empower employees to be able to connect with other people, their, employees, customers. And when they do that, it tends to lead to a much more improved experience for everyone, including the customers, which then lead to more profitability. You see when hotel chains actually empower people to kind of sort out little problems, suddenly the customer service improves massively because they're empowering individuals to do what individuals want to do, which is to help people. I think it's a really powerful thing. In terms of codes of longevity, obviously this is about increasing lifespan, improving quality of life. I think for most people, there are certain things that they just accept, like if you exercise regularly, if you eat well, if you drink water, that's going to increase your life. But I think people are going to be surprised that a sense of community and connection also increases the length of life and the quality of life. Why do you think this has maybe been missed before?
I think it's somewhat because it's an intangible.
Mm,
It's a feeling, so people want to do things to increase their health. Like, in order to feel like I'm doing something, I'm going to eat good, I'm going to exercise, but that's a doingness. And I think now what's going on in the world is this increased awareness that there is more than doingness. There is beingness. There is that connection. There is that life-giving piece that we're missing, that doing doesn't cut it.
mm,
There is that whole other human connection element that really makes a difference. And I followed the Harvard study in my chapter in the book, and they talked about that can increase quality of life, not only quality of life, but can increase longevity by up to 50%. So I think that beingness, that heart connection, that coming out of the physical into the emotional and balancing. There's a wonderful chapter in the book, The Neuroscience of Happiness. You know, the concept of flow. There's the DNA of spirituality. I mean, there's some amazing authors in this book. I felt so honored to be
mm.
with them, but it's really a comprehensive read about all of the things involved in what makes a really worthwhile, well-lived, happy life.
Mm. And I think you're right. The neuroscience supports that. And it's kind of obvious when you think about it. If you receive a smile from someone, that releases serotonin. You feel good. If you have some kind of interaction with someone, a bit of dopamine goes out. So all these kind of feel good, things that are at a kind of neurotransmitter level are often linked to actual human to human connection. It kind of makes sense that if you feel good, that's going to improve your health, your mental well-being, all these kind of things. For those people that might be, let's say, older in life, maybe they're wondering more about longevity, length of life, maybe they've retired. And for a lot of people, I think their natural connections come from family and colleagues. That might be the main, form of human interaction they get. If they've retired, and let's say it's harder to connect with family because of things like the pandemic, what would be your tips to improve connections and quality of life for those people that maybe can't get that from their work life and are struggling to get that from their family life?
I think that giving is always a place to start for me. I saw a news story last week about something called Zoomers to Boomers with the Nextdoor app, and the Generation Z kids were connecting with the older people within their neighborhoods,
Mm.
and they were delivering food. And so I would say get involved with some of these things that technology does allow us to do. There's groups on Nextdoor, there's organizations now on Zoom, people playing cards together, people getting involved with other older individuals that are in the same state as they are. So I would encourage you to seek out those organizations to be able to connect with, to fulfill that need that you might not be getting now in the pandemic.
Mm.
It's difficult.
Absolutely. And I think also, a lot of people drift towards charitable things like working in a charity shop or kind of fundraising type of things, because again, it's not just as for something to do, it's because there's a lot of human interaction there for something meaningful to kind of create those connections. If someone, and obviously the number one tip is go out and get the book Codes of Longevity and figure out all this kind of stuff. But if someone just wanted to get an essence of some of the key things that they could immediately take and apply in their own life to improve their longevity, what would be the takeaways? What would be the key tips that you would give them?
The key tip that I would give is to go from your head to your heart and start to be quiet and to listen to what your heart really wants, what your heart really wants to communicate in the world, how you want to express, and connect with other people from that place, because I think that that makes all the difference in the world, and that's what people are really longing for. We have a saying at work that is our foundation principle, and what does love look like here? So what does that look like for the person in front of me as far as service? What does it look like for myself? What does it look like for the coworker today next to me? Could I listen? What does that look like? So I always ask myself, what does love look like for me today? And how can I make a difference in the lives of the people around me and really make an impact?
Mm. I think that's a really powerful question because it gets people from the intangible to actual tangible things they can do, say, think, actions. And I think that's a very powerful, tip. So again, if you do something kind or kind of nice for someone, that's only going to improve connection, which again gives all those kind of psychological benefits that we talked about before. You've worked in business for a long time. We're talking about several decades. You were able to start very young. If you were offering some wisdom that you've acquired in your business career that again might be useful for people to maybe apply maybe they've got a small, one-man band business, or maybe they're part of, a bigger team. What would be in that experience that you would say, right, that's the invaluable wisdom I could share?
Well, I think it's kind of goes back to my same principle, but I think honor is a really important piece of success in business.
Mm,
So when you honor all the different people, when you're starting to bring people into your organization, you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. That's I think a mistake that entrepreneurs make, is they think that they need to do everything. And so bring in the experts in their different areas and then honor and empower those people to be the best that they can be, because that's how you really grow an organization, because you need to scale. So you can't scale just as an individual. You need to build up the people around you and find the right people that connect with your values and your mission, and help you to come together to really honor your vision and have that kind of as a foundational principle for your business.
mm. I think that's very powerful, because a lot of corporate organizations would often do the opposite, and they have a very specific role, and they would train someone to take all of that individual personality and uniqueness of that individual and say, no, you have to say it this way, in this tone of voice, in this way, wearing this uniform, taking everything about them that makes them unique, and then making a carbon copy, and essentially, that's useful from a corporate point of view in terms of quantifying variables and having something duplicable. But at the same time, it's the opposite of honoring the individual. It treats them as if they're just a cog in the wheel, which then, is going to lead to very poor levels of loyalty and certainly high turnover of staff, because they don't feel like they're being themselves. It sounds like you've figured that out by respecting and honoring the individual, which is really powerful. If someone's listening right now and they wanted to learn more about you, or to get a copy of the book, or to learn about your other book, which you mentioned to me just before this show, where's the best place that they can go for more information?
Well, they can just contact me directly on LinkedIn or Facebook, Jill Wright. They can also contact me directly if they just want to have a conversation or a connection at jill@executiveshine.com. And then I did put together a kind of a little gift for you, for your audience, and they can connect with that at theshinegift.com. And there they can find out some of the secrets to really making authentic connection and using those in life and business to really enrich their experiences.
That's amazing. The shinegift.com was that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Jill, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. It's been really inspirational. Absolute pleasure to have you on the show. So thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to do a radio show starting in January, and I just think you are amazing. So we would love to have you as a guest on our show as well.
Sounds amazing. Look forward to that. And to you at home, thanks for joining me on Modern Mindset. See you again soon for more.